And I was convinced he was going to fire me. And I was so sad during that time, and I couldn't make videos. And in that particular video, I was crying to him, and I didn't want to be crying, but I had just cried myself out, and I was like, okay, it's possible I'm going to lose my job, but I've committed to doing this show and hosting this show. Hey guys, welcome back to the Don't Be Deceived channel, which we get from Galatians 6:7. This is not a podcast or any sort of don't be deceived type content, that meaning that it falls under the category of, not being deceived by the mainstream media, the medical industry, all that kind of thing. This is simply a video where you are getting me raw, and where I want to discuss something with all of you. So I've been very quiet during 2020, 2021 and 2022. I lived in New South Wales. I was not a Victorian, I was a Sydney-sider for that time frame. I am outside because it's good for me to be outside. It's a lovely winter's day. The sky is blue, the wind is windy, and I'm snug as a bug. Basically, this video is me outlining to you guys the struggles of chronic fatigue. To clarify, first of all, I don't have chronic fatigue syndrome. Chronic fatigue syndrome is different to just having chronic fatigue somewhere on the spectrum. So I just want to first of all tell you how I found out about it and what makes more sense to me now, looking back. For a little while now, I've been a little bit, not anti-doctor, because we still need Western medicine, but certainly anti lots of types of medications. My mum. Lots of things that the medical industry tells us that is the case that I don't believe. I believe the cure to cancer, for example, might already exist. I believe we've long been misinformed about many different types of things, and that the medical industry keeps us sick. That is not what this video is about. So for a little while, I thought that I was just, because I was older, that it must be normal in your 30s to be a lot lazier than you were in your 20s, because I didn't want to do anything. I struggled to get up in the morning. I struggled to stay awake. I didn't have the stamina to stay awake for my work. And I was in bed by like 8 p.m. most nights, and I fell in and out of sleep, and I didn't understand what was happening to me and why I didn't have the same level of energy that all my best friends and I have. And so that bothered me. Why wouldn't it? You want to be able to keep up with your friends. And so when I would come back to Melbourne, or even during when I was out in Sydney, I would want to be at home in bed. I would fantasize and picture about being in bed. That's really not normal. And then when I was back in Victoria, living with my family, I realized that that the happiness that I thought would come back to me, because I thought I had depression, which I refuse to have. I don't have depression. But I was like, why am I so down? Why am I still so depressed? What is happening? I thought being back at home around my family and all my loved ones and my original friends, I thought that would perk me up. It did for a time, but then it didn't. There was no follow through with the stamina and the energy levels. So I went to a doctor, and she was very thorough, and she said to me, well, what we're going to do is we're going to do a blood test for you, and we're going to look at your iron levels, because my feeling is that you have low iron, and this is the reason that you have a lack of energy. So I went to Dovertic, They did what they had to do, waited a couple of weeks, and turns out I was anemic and I had low iron. But it just didn't sound right to me. I was like, yeah, I've been anemic most of my life, off and on. I've been hospitalized off and on for years as a child, in my childhood years, for being anemic. I used to have a drip with the dehydration back. I recognize iron deficiency in myself. There was something more and I didn't know what it was. And so that led to trying an alternative form of medicine. And so I looked into the naturopathic world because I believe that the naturopaths look for the root source. Doctors find the problem and then they feed the problem with some sort of a pill. So I was given prescription iron tablets and it was working. Like, she didn't do anything wrong. The doctor also wanted my my excrement looked at. I haven't actually gone down that route. I just didn't choose to do that at all. So then what happened was the naturopath I went to, who works close to the city of Melbourne, he looked at everything and he's like, well, you're a very good patient. I said, you're a very good patient because you filled out the form, you've sent us everything. And he said, look, from what I'm seeing here, it's not just that you have anemia. He goes, clearly your blood levels are low, but looking at everything that I have here, it is evident to me that you're probably more under the umbrella of chronic fatigue. That's how he said it. So that means I don't officially have chronic fatigue syndrome, but that I have chronic fatigue-like elements, which means I can manage it. Diabetes is a kind of disease that can be maintained for the rest of your life. So you can't remove it, but you can maintain it for the rest of your life. He said that essentially the goal is for me to eat so well and live in such a lifestyle that it would result in me no longer having to take the supplements that I take and everything. So this was December of last year, late December of last year. So 2022, I officially discovered what my issue was, why I had no energy, why my energy levels really, really just did not match to people in my age range. I was happy. I was really happy. So I called my friend Jesse Bell and I said to him, I'm so happy. I just found out what my issue is, what my alleged depression was, everything. He was really happy that it had a name. And so, yeah, chronic fatigue. Now let me tell you how that manifested itself in my life. After discovering that I had it, I was prescribed these particular things from my naturopath. I'm going to show you. So this is one of them, Metabol XL. So that's for your metabolism. Magtor XL. This is magnesium powder. So I take this once a day before I go to sleep. I take this before I go to sleep. But because of my muscles killing me lately, I'm doing it morning and night. I haven't asked if I'm allowed to. That's what I'm doing. This one is for your metabolism, and it's supposed to normalize your food intake. It supports the metabolism of fats, carbohydrates. I've been told to stay away from most gluten items. This is my iron tablets. I take these every second day. Iron, obviously, because of my iron deficiency. Bio Enhanced Methyl B. This one I take every day. It supports your digestive system, the immune function. Rapid D. So this one, this has lasted me ages. There's like the pills are so teeny tiny, they look like Tic Tacs. They look like quartered Tic Tacs. That's just vitamin D levels. So if I'm not walking around outside, then eventually I won't need this. If I don't, it's winter too, so if I don't walk around enough, this vitamin D, this is my supplement for not being outside enough. All of these things eventually I won't be taking. The one that I find the most fascinating is the Metabol XL, because this basically suppresses my appetite. Like that's the blatant way of describing it, and that's the one that excites me the most, because it's the one I'm like, oh yeah, I want to like be as skinny as I was when I was in my 20s. Not that I'm fat, I know I'm not, but yeah. And this one was not prescribed by him. He said, oh, keep taking that. That's a good idea that you're taking that. It was not, but this sort of boosts your energy levels up, your cortisone levels, serotonin levels. This is what I lack being able to do on my own. And a good friend of mine who's getting married this year in November, she told me about this, and he goes, yeah, actually keep taking that. So this is what I am on every single day, until such time that I no longer need to take any of those things because I can do it on my own. I have a feeling the iron tablets will be forever though. And the ones I didn't bring were my fish oil tablets. So let me tell you what happens when I don't take those. I'm not eating particularly well, and I decide that I want to just take a lazy day off taking it. During the month of March, which was this year, 2023, I stopped taking it because I was like, well, I'm feeling fine. Whoa, yeah, go me. I'm feeling great. Let me tell you how that manifested in my day-to-day life. Not taking all of those daily resulted in my almost getting fired. So how do I explain that? If you don't take all that stuff, which is supposed to help you with clarity, with your food intake, the food affects you here. I don't know how to explain the sciences of it, but basically the way chronic fatigue affects me is the following. Bursts of emotion, or bursts of unnecessary emotions, just crying and crying and crying for no reason at all. My co-host for the Don't Be Deceived channel, Lauren, got married recently. Not that long ago now, with her wonderful husband, Mark. And that day was hard. Not because of personal emotions regarding marriage or anything like that. It was hard because I was in the peak of my chronic fatigue relapse, or flare-up is the term most chronic fatigue people use. And I was bawling my eyes out at one moment when my friend came up to me. She's like, are you okay? And I'm like, I don't know why I'm crying. And then Lauren, the bride, comes to me and she goes, are you okay? I feel like there's something happening here. And I was sitting with the other girl, her name is Tori, who also has chronic fatigue. We were sitting together and she's like, there's something happening here. She goes, I can tell you're not happy. And I said, I actually am happy for you. And this is such a beautiful wedding and I'm loving being here. It has nothing to do with you. I said, I just don't know why I'm crying. She goes, it's okay. And she thought perhaps it could have been like an unclean spirit. I mean, I guess it could be. As a Christian, I wouldn't dispute the possibility, but I'm pretty sure it's just digestive, internal, and whatever it is. Okay, so that's one way. At work, I was breaking things. Now, I'm a dental assistant, among other things. When you're a dental assistant, you have two little hosey type things, and they suction saliva. So that thing is put on an arm. So there's two sort of places for those things. I broke the arm that it goes in, and my boss forgave it, and he's like, it's all right, don't worry about it. I offered to pay for it. He goes, no, it's all good. Broke it again. I broke it twice. That's $1,400 twice. So 2,800 or whatever the math is. I broke it twice. Okay, I feel like crying now. That was a hard time because I was at the peak of my relapse, and at that time I was doing everything in my power to aside from not taking the supplements which I was instructed to take, I was waking up at 5:45 a.m. I was going to the gym, and I even did a post on my Instagram and my Telegram explaining to people. I didn't mention the chronic fatigue element of it, but telling people that sometimes when you go to work, you take work home with you and you can't stop thinking about it. And I'm not the best worker in the world. I don't sort of think of myself as an amazing worker, but I am a competent worker. I do what needs to be done. I make sure that everything is ticked off the checklist for the day. That's something that I do. And I was convinced he was going to fire me, and I was so sad during that time, and I couldn't make videos, and I had to fake my interview with Steven Shavura. It's coming out eventually. And in that particular video, I was crying to him and I didn't want to be crying, but I had just cried myself out, and I was like, okay, it's possible I'm going to lose my job, but I've committed to doing this show and hosting this show. I've committed to it, and so I have to do these interviews even when I'm not in the best frame of mind. And so he mentions that he saw the video about the chronic fatigue, and then I just bawled my eyes out, and Lauren hadn't jumped on yet. So he's like, oh, I'm so sorry. He goes, I did. I said, no, that's okay. I didn't know that I'd start crying again. I'm so sorry. I said, I'm trying to wake up really early in the morning and do my gymming like my naturopath has instructed me to do, but it's really hard, and I can't stop sleeping. So when you sleep with chronic fatigue, it doesn't actually restore your energy. 12 hours. I slept for 12 hours. I missed 2 days of morning gym sessions because I was trying to go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That was my goal. I couldn't do it. I didn't have the physical stamina, the mental stamina. I couldn't go that early in the morning. I couldn't do it. I failed. And then I slept for 12 hours. It's lucky I didn't have work on those days, because had I had work on those days, my alarm wouldn't have woke me. I slept through my alarm, and that was really, really tricky. And then he said, Stephen Shavura said, maybe you're not supposed to go like that. He goes, maybe you should just do 2 days a week, and maybe you shouldn't go that early. Maybe you should go after work. He goes, maybe you can't do that. Maybe you're not physically capable. And so then I called my naturopath, and he was on holiday. He was having a weekend away in Tasmania. And then I said, I'm really sorry. I don't know what's happening, but I'm in the peak of something really, really negative. I think I'm going to be fired, and I don't know what to do. Can you please write an email to my boss? Because I broke something of his twice, and he should fire me. Logically, I know that, but I'm not myself. I have this huge amount of brain fog, and I can't get rid of it. And I don't know how to function day to day, and thinking is bothering me. I'm not enjoying just thinking. And I said, that's part of what I do. I do commentary. I do Instagram posts. I have opinions on things, all set from the Bible. All my opinions are biblical, but right now, thinking is an effort. It's really difficult. And I had been watching North Korean defector Yeonmi Park. And Yeonmi Park said that thinking is really, really difficult. And people of North Korea don't enjoy thinking. Their government does it for them. Sometimes, though, you act out of survival. And so when she came to the US or South Korea, her journey, she started developing all these opinions, but that thinking, generally speaking, is tricky. I'm not aligning or paralleling my suffering to Yeonmi Park and North Korean defector in any way, but simply that in the midst of chronic fatigue, you don't want to think. And again, I don't have the severity of chronic fatigue syndrome. My chronic fatigue that I have is just on the spectrum. It's under that umbrella, but it simply means that eventually, once I eat properly and I commit to the lifestyle that my naturopath has instructed me to do, it'll disappear. I don't have it right now. Right now, I mean, I'm still taking the supplements. So officially, when I don't need the supplements anymore, then I don't have it really. But I do believe that on the road to no longer having it, my initial reasons for going on the food program was never to lose weight. The food program that I'm on, which is gluten-free, no carbs, no pasteurized milk, it's a very good food program. It seems limiting until you realize it's not. At the moment, for example, I'm supposed to eat grass-fed meats, not meats from like Woolies or Coles, but meats from a good butcher. We actually have a little segment that we're going to release about different butchers around Victoria that are good, healthy, grass-fed meat So they don't feed the cows seaweed, they don't feed the cows oats, it's just grass-fed meats. And so I'm on a very specific food program, and I'm sort of a bit up and down with it. Once I'm officially following the food program for the most part, without the requirement of the supplements that I showed you, I can officially say that I no longer suffer from chronic fatigue. But right now, the effects of chronic fatigue have not affected me. I'm no longer making mistakes at work. The way that chronic fatigue affects me is, one, brain fog, lack of clarity, which is really, really, really bad in a job that requires you to put together a root canal and the instruments and the sequence in which all that happens, or doing implants in one's mouth. You know, you need to have everything done. So I had to work so much harder. You can see the emotion in me in the little video where I divulged my one moment of I didn't want any. I guess I was looking for a little bit of love in that moment, because I woke up at 5:45 a.m., took out my frustration with the boxing circuit, and then I sort of never really mentioned it again.
You know how sometimes work can get you down because you try and you try and you try, and I'm one of those people who tries so hard, but I need to try harder than most people to be A+ or A level. I can't just sort of ride on my coattails and like sit on my laurels. Anyway, so I decided to go to do the boxing circuit this morning, and now I'm going to figure out a way to stop making mistakes at work so I don't feel like this.
But having chronic fatigue means for me a lack of clarity, a lot of brain fog, constant confusion. That's the second one. Constant confusion. Easily confused. Third for me, extremely forgetful. Unnecessarily forgetful, like to a level that makes no sense for someone in my age range. Laziness. A lot of laziness. Like a lot of the time I just want to be in bed. I'm excited about being in my bed. That's not normal. This isn't necessarily relevant to me, but a lack of sex drive is also one of the symptoms that one could get from chronic fatigue. That's not really relevant in my life, but it would be in the list of things that affect me with the chronic fatigue. And I think those are the ones that get to me the most. Those are the ones. And so it's been really, really troubling.
It is extremely debilitating trying to get up out of bed. It is extremely debilitating trying to do a simple task that you could do without thinking, that now becomes something that you need to try and justify in every sense. It's like, okay, now I have to get up, I have to put socks on, I have to wear a coat, I have to brush my teeth. All of the littlest things become a debilitating task, and it is mental torture, and it is so draining that by the end of the day all you want to do is sleep. And that was what I was dealing with in the peak of either my relapse or during the pandemic, which is where I believe I started developing my chronic fatigue, which to this day I don't know how I got. Some people have said it could be because of mold, but I did not get it for that reason.
So you'd be my hairdresser for almost a year, being bred. And the contrast between when you first were dealing with me to now regarding my hair, you mentioned earlier that it's grown back. Yeah, a lot. So that means that a lot healthier. So that means the chronic fatigue that I told you about actually manifested itself with hair loss. Yeah, that's crazy.
Now, I'm not here saying that I suffer from a terminal disease. I don't know what true suffering is like in the way of dealing with something that is life-threatening. What I'm dealing with, again, is also on the lesser end of chronic fatigue. There are some people on that end of it. I heard a story from my Bible study from a married couple, and they told me that they know someone that needs a week to prepare for a party where she's going to converse with individuals for a 3-hour duration. Imagine preparing mentally for something that's only going to last 3 hours. Mine is not that bad. I'm not in bed all the time. I'm out with friends. I have coffee. And I'm basically back on the mend. And there are many, many factors that have helped me get back on the mend. So what worked for me was the supplements. So supplementations, which eventually will be phased out. Acupuncture. I did a little bit of acupuncture with a South Korean lady. I wish to continue that again at a later stage. And routine and consistency, also extremely helpful. Being outside helps. You need to walk every day. I walked to work on Wednesday. I walked to work, and it was the most clear-headed I've ever been. Now, I live about a 7-minute drive from my work. The walk was about 50 minutes, probably be about 30 minutes once I get used to it. But it was the most clear-headed I'd been ever to my job. I had a much happier disposition. And so I would tell people who have chronic fatigue to walk every day. And my naturopath said that there's some sort of statistic out there that says if you are outside for 5 minutes minimum a day, it'll somehow brighten your mood. It'll somehow make you happier. So that's super important. I think routine is important, and so that with that comes church life. I go to church every Sunday, not every Sunday, but most Sundays I go to church, and then every Wednesday night I have Bible study. And so these are things that personally for me are helpful. Now, if you are not a Christian, you don't go to church every Sunday, but you know, you can still walk somewhere. I'm going to try and start walking to church on Sundays because church is super close. Another way that one can go to add to their routine is by going and doing a golf class, fencing lessons, archery with, you know, the bow and arrow type things, like something that you do every week that you do, whether you love it or not, or you just sort of half like it and you're going bowling, you do it because it's something that is a new skill that you're learning, and it's a thing to do to add to your routine. That's super important. And just increasing your prayer. That all of these things help me. So for those who aren't Christian, I will say being outside for more than 5 minutes, going for walks, implementing a set routine, eating what you're instructed to eat. And if you don't have the funds to see a naturopath, then there are things you can cut out. Gluten is usually one of those things. So rather than eating bread, you can have unleavened bread. So that would be like pita bread and anything that says no gluten. And uptaking your red meat and salmon, and removing most processed foods. And so that's what got me back to me. And a friend of mine was telling me about something called a lightning course, which she said really helped her. Now, she suffers from long COVID, and that, I imagine, has fatigue elements to it. And so with her long COVID that she suffered from, I believe that what takes place is a similar chronic fatigue. So this lightning course she did, which cost $1,300, the way it is explained, and this is now me offering it third hand. She, you know, for her it would be second hand. This is third hand. So this is hearsay on my end. But essentially, your mind is triggered by certain things. If the way it's described to me is, if I have a reaction to when I'm cooking and I burn my hand, oh, stove, and hand on stove equals burn, ow, bad. So the mind learns a lesson from that. It triggers that response. So if I have a car accident because of a tunnel that I drove under, and then forever my brain is triggered, okay, so there's tunnel, it creates anxiety and I start to feel sick based on the fact that that's what the brain has been trained to think. It's conditioned to think that way. And so a lot of the time our sickness could be translated through these triggers. And so this lighting course somehow now it's not a course created for people with chronic fatigue. It's just called a lightning course, and I think one can implement what is learned in that course. And so I thought I'd mention it because it helped my friend with long COVID, who couldn't work for 6 months, and now is working 4 days a week full time. And so I thought I'd mention it because it sounds relevant to what I'm trying to get out here. So again, this video is not medical advice. There's no naturopath here. There's no medical doctor here. But I felt it important to talk about because I think sometimes people go, oh, women are so moody. Oh, she must be on her period. I'm not really known for being super moody, but lately maybe. And it's because of chronic fatigue, which I now don't really consider myself to have because I'm completely back to normal as far as I'm concerned. All that is left is for me to get off this medication, or supplements I should say, because medication is medically prescribed and supplements is naturopathically suggested. I've got to mention something. I figured out a way to fix everything. I wanted to work, but I couldn't work. I was working 1 day a week. I basically got demoted from 2 days a week, sometimes 3 days a week, down to 1, because he should have fired me and he didn't. And then I found another job because I was looking really hard for a job. At the time that I was diagnosed, I had 3 jobs. I was working as a nanny, I was working as a dental assistant, as well as being in charge of systems and protocols at another clinic and this one place. Now, the nannying job I'll do every now and then, and the other job fell through because the dentist, who is a surgeon, lost the use of his hand. So the only job that I had was the one that I was demoted from 2 days down to 1 day. And there are people out there who complain about whatever it is that they complain about, not being able to do with the things that they want to do, learning another language or working. I figured all that stuff out. I'm working again, almost full time, with the goal of going to Europe soon, visiting my family, and then eventually hopefully going to the United States. Don't live in the excuses that you can't do something, because I got out of my particular, now everyone has a different story and everyone's ability to do something is different. But if you can't even go outside for 5 minutes a day, you're limiting yourself. You can get out of it. If you can't find work, then you sometimes can. Just make it happen. That's it from me. I hope this video helps in some way, and I hope Tarkin is able to put something a little more fuller and balanced together. But the video is supposed to be relatively raw. Okay, bye guys.